There's something you notice about people born between 1987 and 1993. They're tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. They apologize when they ask for what they need. They work harder than anyone around them but still feel like they're failing. And when you ask how they're doing, they laugh and say, "Just pushing through," like that's supposed to be normal. If you were born in those 7 years, you didn't just enter adulthood at the wrong time. You became an adult during the exact moment when every promise your parents made fell apart. You did everything they told you to do, got good grades, went to college, took out loans because education is an investment. And when you graduated, the world greeted you with closed doors and entry-level positions that required 5 years of experience. That timing didn't just hurt your bank account, it rewired your psychology. Because core millennials didn't just experience economic hardship, they internalized it. The recession didn't happen to them, it happened inside them. And 20 years later, you're still carrying it. That weight in your chest that won't lift. That voice in your head that says you're never doing enough. That bone-deep exhaustion that has nothing to do with how much sleep you got. They call you the burnout generation, the just push through it generation, the generation that can't afford therapy but desperately needs it. And they're not wrong. Let's go back, not to your first job or your college graduation, further, to when you were 8 years old, sitting at the dinner table in 1995 or 1998. Your parents were there, physically, but they were exhausted, both working, both stressed, both stretched so thin trying to keep everything together that there wasn't much left over for you. You weren't latchkey kids like Gen X. Your parents wanted to be more present than their parents were. So they were home, but they were also checking work emails, thinking about deadlines, worrying about money. What you got was presence without attention. You learned to be low maintenance, to not need too much, to handle your own problems because mom and dad were already handling enough. You became the good kid, the responsible one, the child who didn't cause problems because you could feel the stress radiating off your parents and you didn't want to add to it. 40% of core millennials describe their parents as emotionally unavailable. Not cruel, not neglectful, just not there. And when your parents aren't emotionally available, you learn that your feelings aren't important, that needing help is burdensome, that asking for support is selfish. So you stopped asking. You figured it out yourself, and that became your default setting. Self-reliance that looks like strength but feels like drowning. Then came the messaging, from parents, teachers, guidance counselors, everyone singing the same song. You're special. You can be anything. Just go to college, get a degree, any degree. It doesn't matter what you study as long as you get that piece of paper. Take out loans if you have to. It's an investment in your future. You'll make more over your lifetime with a degree. Everyone knows that. So you did it. You picked a school, signed loan paperwork you barely understood because you were 18 and every adult in your life said this was the path. You worked part-time jobs, pulled all-nighters, graduated with honors. And then you entered a job market that had been destroyed. The class of 2008 through 2012 graduated into hell. Unemployment at 10%, companies that weren't hiring, positions that paid $30,000 a year, requiring a bachelor's degree and 3 years of experience. You sent out hundreds of applications. Most never got responses. The ones that did offered unpaid internships. For experience, they said, to get your foot in the door. You couldn't afford rent on unpaid experience, but you also couldn't get hired without it. So you moved back in with your parents, worked retail or food service, applied to real jobs at night, told yourself this was temporary, that any day now it would get better. It didn't. Not for years. The ones who graduated into the recession earned 20% less than they would have if they'd entered a healthy economy. That gap doesn't close. It follows you for decades. Less starting salary means smaller raises, fewer promotions, less savings, less security. Everything compounds. But the psychological damage cuts deeper than the financial hit. Burnout isn't just being tired. Exhaustion means you reach your limit and stop. Burnout means reaching your limit and keeping going anyway. For days, weeks, years. You wake up already exhausted. Not because you didn't sleep, because you never actually rest. Your brain won't turn off. You lie in bed at 2 a.m. thinking about deadlines, bills, emails you haven't answered, things you forgot to do, ways you've disappointed people, problems you need to solve. At work, you push harder than everyone around you. You say yes to extra projects. You stay late. You work weekends. Not because you love your job, because you're terrified of being laid off, of being replaced, of losing the stability you fought so hard to build. You know how fragile everything is. You watched it all collapse once. You can't let it happen again. So you grind. You hustle. You optimize. You side hustle. You never stop moving because stopping feels like failure, and failure feels like death. 77% of core millennials report workplace burnout. Nearly half have quit jobs for mental health reasons they couldn't explain to employers. Because how do you say, "I'm falling apart," when everyone expects you to just push through it? You learn that pushing through is a virtue, that complaining is weak, that if you're struggling, you're not trying hard enough. So you keep pushing, through panic attacks, through insomnia, through depression you won't acknowledge, because you don't have time to be depressed, and you definitely can't afford the therapy that might help. Here's what broke something permanent. You did everything right, and it still went wrong. You followed every rule, respected authority, believed adults when they said work hard and life works out. You took their advice, made their recommended choices, and got punished for it. Student loans that will follow you until you're 50. Jobs that pay less than your parents made at your age. Housing costs triple what they were a generation ago. You'll never own a home, never retire, never have the security your parents told you was waiting if you just did what you were supposed to do. And when you point this out, when you say the system is broken, older generations call you entitled, lazy, complainers. They say you just need to work harder, stop buying avocado toast, figure it out like they did. Except they didn't have $40,000 in student debt at 22. They didn't graduate into a recession. They bought houses on single incomes. They got jobs without needing years of experience first. They lived in a completely different economic reality. And they're giving you advice like the rules didn't change. That cognitive dissonance is maddening. You feel like you're going crazy. Like maybe you are the problem. Maybe you're not working hard enough. Maybe everyone else has it figured out, and you're the only one drowning. You're not. 75% of core millennials say they'll never achieve financial security their parents had. Half don't believe they'll ever retire. This isn't individual failure. It's systemic collapse landing on one generation's shoulders. There's a feeling core millennials carry that nobody talks about. It sits in your chest like a stone, heavier some days than others, but never gone. You're angry, deeply, quietly furious. Angry that you did everything they told you and it wasn't enough. Angry that you're working 3 times as hard for half the reward. Angry that you can't afford a house, can't have kids, can't take time off, can't rest, can't stop, can't breathe. But you can't express that anger because it makes you sound ungrateful, privileged, like you don't appreciate what you have. So you swallow it, you smile, you say you're fine, you keep pushing through. And that suppressed rage turns inward, becomes anxiety, depression, insomnia, physical pain you can't explain, illnesses that doctors can't diagnose. Your body keeping score of everything your mind won't acknowledge. If you're a core millennial reading this, here's what you need to hear. You're not lazy, you're not entitled, you're not failing. You're surviving a rigged game while people who wrote the rules tell you to try harder. The exhaustion you feel isn't personal weakness, it's a rational response to impossible circumstances. The anxiety isn't a character flaw, it's your nervous system reacting to legitimate threat. The depression isn't a choice. It's what happens when you push through too long with no relief in sight. You've been just pushing through it since you were 22, for over a decade. Maybe it's time to stop acting like that's sustainable, like that's noble, like that's just what adults do. Burnout isn't a badge of honor. It's a warning sign. And you've been ignoring it for so long, you forgot what it feels like to not be constantly overwhelmed. You deserved better than what you got. You deserved the stability you were promised, the security you earned, the future you worked for. None of this was your fault, and you're allowed to be angry about it. You're allowed to grieve what you lost. You're allowed to admit you're not okay. If this landed, if you felt seen by this in a way that made your chest tight, you're not alone. This channel is for people carrying weights nobody else can see. Subscribe to keep exploring what makes us who we are. And if you're a core millennial, drop your birth year below. Let's find each other, because maybe we're done pushing through alone.